Gosh, I
Wow.
enjoyed that, Jason.
I have.
Yeah. What do you think, Rex?
I mean, I took so many notes that I didn't have any questions. Just so many tips and
Yeah,
great things, and so many things that
me
really
too.
resonated with me that I agreed with, were profound ways of saying things that I felt have escaped my articulation for a long time. Um, I really loved how you said of the idea of the only one. Um, sorry, the one and only. I love David said
Yeah,
it
the one
earlier,
and only.
but the
Yeah,
one and only is actually the only one.
yeah,
But I really loved
yeah.
how Jason, you led off the conversation with saying that the idea of only having one, um, what were we calling it, the soulmate, it removes a lot of
Oh,
agency. And I really liked how you summed it up by saying, great relationships are made, not found. I mean, I have a ton of points here I could just list out, and I'm your cheerleader because I really enjoyed this episode so much, and listening to you all talk and discuss
Yeah,
this, and kind of the issues attached to it,
yeah.
and really offering a way of like, this is really how a relationship should be, being committed and trying your best to make it work. And gosh, there's so many things you said. There's so many things circling in my head that I'm trying to parse them out in a
I got
way that makes sense.
I got a question. I got a question for Rex while you're thinking through some of that. In these big classes, Jason, I'm curious. You probably have students that come up, right? Or students that will email and, hey, I had a question about this or that. Do you see themes? And it doesn't necessarily, may not be related to soulmate stuff. Do you see themes of common concerns? I guess that's what I'm asking. Freshman, sophomore level. What are you seeing today? And has it changed? What are some of the worries, concerns, challenges?
What I get, and this does tie a bit to soulmate possibly. I'm seeing a generation that has a pretty good sense of when they always want advice about relationship formation. And it's never a question. I think they have a pretty good sense when a relationship's not good enough, but they really, really struggle with, is this good enough? Right. Like I said, am I in love enough? I love this person, but there's this sense of that. I don't quite know what the benchmark is. The notion has always been, you're going to know it when you see it. You're going to have that confidence, and they're kind of, is this it? Right. I had one fellow describe there's just a difference of degree rather than they're expecting a difference of kind, so to speak. But the problem is they're paralyzed. They're paralyzed because it is into a finding model. So it's like, it all comes down to this. It's one choice. I'm going to choose this person. And if it's right, it's all going to work out. And if it's not, it's all not going to work out. And it's like, wow, you're in a really interesting spot here. Instead of saying, I've got a really, really promising foundation, and it's really now going to be about my investment and the depth of this relationship. And so you're going to make, thousands of decisions that'll determine the course of this. I sometimes call this the roller coaster model of relationships. It's almost like they're at the amusement park walking around like, I get to pick one ride. And I got to pick the right one. But once I pick it, all I do is I sit down, I strap in, and I hope the ride goes well. Right. And it's like, that's not your relationship. If your relationship doesn't have a steering wheel, you're doing it wrong. Right. You need to believe that every day in a relationship, you can say, I don't like the course this is on. Well, then turn the wheel. Right. Change the wheel. Go a different direction. Have that sense of agency, that sense of, if we don't like what the relationship was yesterday, well, then have a different relationship tomorrow kind of idea. But it's got to reduce. If not, I just see a lot of dating paralysis right now. I see a lot of dating paralysis, a lot of worry. Plus, it's also getting connected. The other big myth that I'm seeing, this is a trend. The notion now is I need to find the perfect relationship to fit my life. And I see that as the opposite of every great marriage I've ever seen. The people have been willing to fit their life to that relationship. right? And so it's a little bit backwards that way. I've had people like, oh, this is such a great opportunity, but he's going on an internship this summer and will be gone. And you're like, that's the sum total. Your relationship can't overcome a 4-month internship kind of thing. It's like, wait a minute. I use there's the goofy line from Toy Story. I can't remember which one it was. It's like 3 or 4. It's like when they meet Ken doll and Barbie, right? There's a time where Ham and Potato or Ham and Slinky Dog are teasing Ken, and they tell Ken, "You're not a toy. You're an accessory. You're a purse with legs," right? And I said, is that what you're doing with your relationships? Are you looking for someone to just be an accessory to your life? So you're looking for that to perfectly fit. So I'm always trying to encourage young people quite a bit to say, hey, if you want this relationship to really, really be great, every great relationship, we should all have our individual pursuits. We should all have our ambitions. Hopefully it is a relationship that you're going to feel that your sense of personal growth comes from that. But every great relationship is going to start seeing life opportunities through the lens of that relationship. And I'm going to say, is this good for us? Is this good for our relationship? Is this good for our family? There's no such thing as kind of the unfettered individual who just gets to kind of drag the relationship along as an accessory with them, right? That relationship eventually is going to have to come first. And I see dating really struggling because of that, because young people are getting pretty strong individual life paths set in their minds. And then they're frustrated that they can't find relationships that just kind of plop in and fit with that. So I'm getting a lot of the questions around that too.
Oh, please, Jason, just one quick question I'm dying to ask, if you don't mind. I need help with this. What about in the later stages of marriage then? Things change. Somebody leaves their family faith. And so now the person who's still in the faith realizes that she or he can no longer serve a mission, and that's really their dream. Or to continue teaching their family about their faith, their grandchildren, and kind of pursuing this angle of that they always thought they were going. Suddenly there is that crisis. What is your advice for a couple? Yeah,
I mean, that's classic Gottman-esque gridlock, right? I mean, you just where because our sense of partnership starts to erode so much about, are we moving towards that shared life and that shared direction together? Yeah, and those become the most challenging of all, right? Just, can we reintegrate our partnership? Can we, and those stories do, I think, create a lot of fear among young people. I think we need to do a job of helping them. Sometimes I think they kind of get the negative stories. This is like labor and delivery stories at the hospital. Everything that goes wrong, the epidural that worked backwards, and you get to tell that labor and delivery story for the rest of your life. The people who actually made it to the hospital on time, got the epidural, watched the basketball game, had the baby 5 hours later. That's how our firstborn was. We never get to tell that story. That story never gets told. But to be honest, it happens all the time, right? So, no, those are super challenging situations. If the actual foundation of partnership, the foundation of life direction, which is just a great example. It's an example in the reverse, right? That all the communication skills in the world, all the, other things, if you don't have working towards that similar, it's just really tough for that relationship to have that sense of purpose and meaning. Can it be established? What can they still work together on becomes really critical.
Be a little creative. Maybe think outside the box. Maybe.
But it also becomes, I think, times when we've seen couples that probably for deeper and a little bit more meaningful consideration do give some thought about the continuance of the relationship. That's a bit of a different context to counsel through than just kind of the more superficial emotional part of it. That's Bill, right? That's classic discernment counseling and all that kind of stuff that happens in those moments. It's trying to get people to really evaluate, and particularly if it's been a change of course too. If someone's like, wait a minute, we came together and this was kind of the life course, and then one of them is choosing other directions. That's as hard as it gets in my mind, counseling world.
Thank you for just that validation. It breaks my heart, and there may just not be an answer. That might be the couple's answer, is a new course, perhaps.
if you believe in marriage having that fundamental purpose, it's just, you can't tell somebody to say, hey, lose those purposes, right? I mean, that's why at least in the dating context, so like I do in my Gottman lesson and all of that, we do talk around identity differences and preference differences, that we all need to have the maturity to negotiate those preferences, and every great marriage still has preference differences, but real identity differences, that's kind of the whole purpose of why you don't get engaged in 4 weeks, right, Dave? Because you're trying to make sure as much as possible you don't have those identity differences in place, because how do you negotiate them? They're core to who you are as a person. They're core to your sense of being true to yourself, true to your faith, true to your core beliefs. Negotiation just doesn't work. You know, the classic example is that I want to be a parent. I don't want to be a parent, right? And I talk with the young people and say, how do you negotiate that? There's no we'll get a dog, or, you know, I mean, that's not going to cut it. That's not so there's just some things that really do become non-negotiable without giving up core parts of who we really truly are. And that's the hardest. It's okay in the dating world, right? You get that in the premarital counseling. It's like, oh, that's awesome. You're great. You guys could be wonderful neighbors to each other, but probably not spouses. So, you know, move along. But and I always tell people it's okay to break up with good people in that dating context. But boy, does that get tough when you get family and kids and generations. Yeah. That's just,
it's a whole nother ball game.
Yep.
It's
whole different piece of it.
Yep. Thank you.
I was going to say, you know, kind of into what Liz was saying, it is rather, you alluded to this earlier, that there's so much in our life and our culture that is trying to free us from things or make us free. And it seems to be really freeing us from meaning. And I think if you have that underlying foundation of, you know, there's a meaning to this, you know, I think you can pretty much conquer anything. But yeah, the faith thing seems to be rather difficult. My wife had to shift from, I wouldn't say had to, but we kind of went through that on our own way, and then both got on the same boat. It took a long time, but oh my gosh, has it made things just way better and incredible for us to be on the same boat with our faith. But I know that's not going to be true for everybody. But
the best writing I've seen on that topic, and it does have a religious foundation to it, but it's Bruce Hafen's book, The Belonging Heart, because Bruce does such a great job. Elder Hafen does such a great job of, he anchors it back into our core human needs, right? And that we do have this need to belong. He ties it in a gospel or a Christian context of why charity is always emphasized as so important, is because we have that need. God cares about us being, you know, sharing charity with others, because charity is the giving of that love, and the need to belong is the receiving of that love. But he just talks so beautifully about how these bonds that make us, you know, it's classic Warner stuff too, right, Dave? It's these bonds that make us free. It's that liberation. Elder Hafen tells the beautiful story of a girl that came home one day from school, and the school teacher was going in this kind of language about no one belongs to anybody, and you know, we're how that. And the daughter came home, and she was young, grade school girl, kind of upset, and says to her mom, "Is that true? Right? Do I not belong to you?" Right. And this mother, you know, captures the moment perfectly and gathers this little girl up and says, "Of course you belong to me, right? And you belong." And you maybe change the wording into the way today's ears hear it. And you don't belong to, but you belong with. And we do have this permanence, and we do have this connection and this responsibility to each other. And so it is a freedom. That's what Elder Hafen does the best. Bruce Hafen talk just about that. It is then in those commitments and being deeply obligated and deeply committed, sacrificial commitment to each other is what will be the only thing that really meets that true need for permanence and belonging. So That's another book that's a little bit hard to get a hold of. You can see I love all of the out of print books that
the classics.
Yeah, classics. Well, Jason, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
for
what an honor, Jason.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a few minutes to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. When you hit the like button and leave a comment, your feedback helps us improve the show. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and connect with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and on Facebook at Stronger Marriage. Be sure to share with us what topics you want us to explore or what you loved about today's episode. If you want even more resources to improve your relationship connection, visit our website at strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producers Rex Polanis and Alexis Alcott and the team at Utah State University. And you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission